Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to everyone watching live.
Yes, happy
Greg
Thursday.
and MD here. Happy
Here we
Thursday.
are,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. That's right. And it's October 1st, so new month.
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
that.
In our neighborhood, people have already started putting out beautiful, pumpkin decorations and Halloween decorations.
This is our first year living in this neighborhood, and we get the sense that they take their Halloween very seriously.
Yeah.
Which is cool because you get all
yeah.
the costumes and
there are a lot of small children around, so I think you're right. I think we're gonna have a fun little Halloween trick or treat.
There's pressure on us to step up our
I know.
decoration game.
Well, I want to go pumpkin picking.
Yeah,
so
that'd be fun.
That's definitely on the list.
Yeah.
Comment below if you've ever gone pumpkin picking and what that's like for you. In a similar vein to pumpkins and Halloween, today we're talking about energy vampires.
And yeah, you're right. It is a little spooky.
It is. Yeah, it just happened
Halloween,
that way.
Yeah. We should have done this. We should have waited until October 28th, whenever Halloween is.
The 31st.
31st, yeah. For the Energy Vampire edition. So what is an energy vampire?
So, some people kind of talk about energy vampires in the frame of narcissistic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a personality disorder. That's pretty serious, right? It's a personality disorder that is narcissism. That's different from what we're talking about within this context. Energy vampire can also be someone who drains your energy when you interact with them, when you interact with them in real life or on the phone or virtually, right? After having a conversation with them, you just feel so drained. Right. So that's an energy vampire in the context that we're talking about.
Okay.
Right?
So someone who's just sort of exhausting to engage with.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, this could, have to do with your ability to either be like an ambivert or ambivert being both an extrovert and an introvert, or an introvert. So after social interaction, a lot of times introverts feel exhausted, right? Especially after meeting with a lot of people in a group. Extroverts, on the other hand, get recharged. So they feel the energy and the buzz from all of that social interaction, and then feel energized and maybe go on to, at home later, they'll bust out 100 pages of a new book they're writing. I don't know, something like that, right?
Yeah, it's just fun. I'm laughing because it's so different from who I am.
Yeah, I mean, you're both. The reality is, I am
the older
too.
I get, the more, and I think personalities shift, but the older I get, the more introverted I think I become and realize I am.
Right.
Right.
No, I feel that way too, to a lot of, to a great extent. But I think ambivert is where I'm sort of more predisposed because it's both.
Right.
And I think
so that's separate. So if I'm an introvert, then I would find, by definition, most conversations draining.
Yeah, just depleting of your energy.
But that doesn't mean everyone's an energy vampire.
No, of course not. And so I also want to be careful with this term, right? Because people can exhibit communication characteristics of energy vampires. That does not mean that they are all the time an energy vampire. So
okay, that's a good point.
That's a good point, right? Because I feel like with certain people, you might be even more, looking for their it's not like you're seeking out to deplete them of their energy. It's just maybe, you see them as a mentor figure and you want to ask them a lot of questions and you come to them with advice seeking, that you're looking for advice or something like that, where of course on the mentor side, they'll probably feel a little drained after engaging with you.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea of framing the energy vampire as sort of context specific, right?
Yeah.
So that sometimes you're in energy vampire mode and you're basically expecting more from the conversation and demanding more from the interaction.
Exactly.
Than the person with whom you're interacting.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Whereas in other contexts, you might be the energy source.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Sort of supplying all the information and sort of, I don't know, what we call it, the energy.
Energy, the listening or the active
The
listening.
listening, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? We might not always be giving advice to someone or be qualified to give advice to someone, right? If they come to you for advice, you might just really, all you can do is lend an ear and be open to listening to them and really engage with them and, validate what they're feeling. And that more than often is more than enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's surprising how little that actually happens.
Yeah.
Right? Too often
Yeah.
when people get together, they are often just sort of speaking over each other. They're all just trying to dump what's on their mind.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the debate. And so I feel like there was a lot of interaction with like a lot of overlap. So in conversation analysis, we look at these places in the conversation where there's overlap and interruption. So let's jump into the characteristics of energy vampire behavior. One thing is, constantly hogging the floor, hogging the conversation, right? Making it a lot about you, right? Ad nauseum. It's not like once in a while you bring up, a situation that you're in or feelings that you're feeling or something that's going through your mind that's about you, about the ego. This is ad nauseum. So constantly, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you interact with this person, they seem to just be talking about themselves, right? And also the type of language that is used, right? I, me, right? If, this harkening back to one of the interview courses that we put out there. There are a few actually out now. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out. But we talk about this, the importance of, even if you take full responsibility for this amazing project that you put out, not referring to it as something you did, right? Saying, I did this amazing project. It's like we, the inclusivity of the team, because of course there were people who helped you, right? So really paying attention to that I, me language.
Yeah. And you see that a lot, I think, in team dynamics, right? Some people tend to discuss what they're working on and what they've accomplished with that inclusive language, right? That demonstrates they have this sort of team mindset. Whereas others really hone in on, this is what I did. And, did you like what I did? Should we do more of this, right? But it's focused very much on their personal achievements and accomplishments as opposed to frame them in the context of a team.
Right.
And so from that perspective, they're almost an energy vampire on the team, right?
Absolutely. Oh, of course. Yeah, for sure.
Because the highlight is more so on what they've done as opposed to the team's accomplishments. And most of the time on a team, it is a team accomplishment, right? Everyone's sort of supporting each other in different ways.
For sure. There's that great quote, right? Something, I'm going to garble it a little bit, but it's something on the lines of, no success is real.
No I in team?
There's that. That's a good one. But there's no success without a team, right? It's something like that. Anyway, I garbled it. Something like that, though, right? Where it really drives home the point of any achievement is really not the feat of one individual. It's all the people that helped you get there, right? Any successful person that you can think of had help along the way.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins.
Help, luck as well.
Luck too, right? What's that quote? Luck is where hard work meets opportunity.
Yep.
All right, so enough with the quotes.
Garbled otherwise.
Garbled quotes. So that's one characteristic, right? Actually, we've covered two so far. Communication characteristics of energy vampire tendencies in social interaction, online and offline. So the interruption, hogging the floor constantly, right? Trying to always talk over people or just talk, right? Using I and me language more than other pronouns. And then, body language too, right? Body language maybe is like a little bit, I don't want to say aggressive, but a little bit like maybe too much or, but it's not like fair to say too much, right? Because some people, as we talked last week, there are different communication sensory preferences, and visuals tend to use a lot of body language. Kinesthetics, on the other end of the spectrum, they're very reserved with their body language. So That's not like the best way to, but if you notice it's more like aggressive than maybe what they tend
Right.
to display,
Right.
then that could be.
And so the idea there is that their body language they're sort of demanding more attention and prominence in the interaction
Yeah.
through sort of very overt and an active body language.
Right. And it's sort of like also in the context of physical space, right? In American culture, we have this saying where we are not, if with people that we don't regularly interact with and in more professional settings, we like to be at an arm's length, right? So this would be way too close if it was, I don't know, more like a professional setting.
Yes.
But we're business partners and we're also married, so that's different. But think about when you're with your close friends, right? Being pretty close in proximity as you talk to them. When you're more distant from someone, you're going to probably want a little bit more space. And that's just how, as human nature,
it's a respect thing.
Goes. Yeah. And of course, it's culturally bound as well. So in certain cultures, within certain subcultures and contexts, there might be even more of that or less of that, or none at all. So it's really interesting, right? So we talk in American culture about invading our space, invading personal space, and that you can think of as coming within that parameter of not at an arm's length. So that's also something to be aware of.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what came to mind also is sort of the opposite.
Yeah.
So
an energy giver?
No, it's not that, but no body language as also a form of energy draining.
Ah, I like that.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
It's almost like, I think of it as like a black hole or something.
That's interesting.
Where someone is not engaged physically in the conversation.
I see what you're saying. Like they're aloof, right?
They're aloof,
not,
exactly. That almost sucks the life out of the conversation as well.
Yeah.
And if this is getting us off track, then fine.
No.
But how does that sort of factor into the energy vampire paradigm, right?
Yeah.
So what you're describing, and what we should probably do is go through the remaining characteristics that you're describing.
Yeah.
But something I guess maybe to put on the docket is like, what is the other type of energy vampire where you get in a conversation with them and you feel drained afterwards, but it's because they weren't giving enough.
Right. Well, I think that also falls, it's definitely on topic. I'm glad you brought that up. That's more of the aloof, disengaged, right? Because what's happening is when you're trying to talk with them, engage with that person, and they're unresponsive, they're not maybe moving their body, they're kind of like frozen, lobotomized. That's probably because they're thinking about themselves and what they're going to say, and maybe a situation that they've had, but thank goodness it's not like the one you had, right? Kind of dynamic going on.
Right.
So it
actually fits in the paradigm. Then.
Yeah, it does. It fits perfectly in the paradigm. Well done. I mean, that's a great example. I'm so glad you brought that up because there's a different type of energy vampire characteristic where you might not, somebody's coming to you for example, the other type is when the person's constantly dominating and talking about themselves ad nauseum, right? That's from the speaker's point of view.
Right.
Now, from the listener's point of view, as an energy vampire characteristic, I don't want to say just an energy vampire as a person because labels are not fun.
Behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Tendency, behavior, perfect. That would be more passive, right? In that you're still drained because you're talking and you don't get any response for them and no uptake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think the way I would think about it is someone exhibiting energy. Let's just call them energy vampires.
Okay, we're just gonna. But you know what we're
trying
talking
to be too
about.
PC here.
Yeah.
So an energy vampire, when they're talking about themselves, they may be excessively animated and engaged.
And think of it just as like when someone's asking for advice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And on the when the other person is talking, when it's not about them, that's when they switch on the aloof mode.
Yeah.
Where they basically
they get bored.
Yeah.
They get sort of like
they get bored. They disengage. They imply that they're uninterested.
Yeah. Right.
And that can be doubly draining. So on the one hand, they're draining your energy because they're forcing you to sort of deal with their problems.
Yeah.
And sucking all of your energy toward resolving whatever their problems are.
Right.
And then when you trying to reciprocate and get some energy back from them, they don't give it back.
Right.
Right. It's one thing, like people shouldn't feel afraid right now that when they're having conversation with friends that they shouldn't be, open and talking and about their troubles. Like that's part of the beauty of friendship is it's a safe space to do that and to offload some of those frustrations and worries. But the key is that it's reciprocal. So the energy balance goes back and forth. At one point, you might be a draining force, and then at another point, you're a giving force, right? So it's this back and forth. With an energy vampire, it only goes in one direction.
One direction, yeah. And so, it's important to kind of think about when you're engaging with this person who's exhibiting this characteristic, maybe more than they should, or more than you notice that they do the other, right? Maybe if they're important to you, if they're in your family or if they're a close friend, or you interact with them regularly and you want to, then maybe have the conversation and say, I'm feeling a little bit like it's not really balanced. I do my best to listen to what you have to say and, actively listen, right? That's another characteristic, not listening actively, being passive. Instead, showing active and engaged listening where you're empathetic. And maybe have this like upfront, frank conversation with them. If it's not worth it, if it's not, then maybe let go of that person, right? It really comes down to you and how you want to spend your time, right? It's not like we have just like a million hours in a day. We want to spend time with the people that we want to spend time with. And if it's not a two-way street with communication, then maybe, Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye, right?
And I think there's a middle ground there too, actually, where particularly if it's someone like a colleague that you don't really have a choice. You can't
well, that's a good
sunset
point.
the relationship.
Yeah.
There's a middle ground where you basically, when you know you're going to interact with an energy vampire, you steel yourself for that, right? You prep yourself.
Right.
So when you're going into the conversation, you recognize that the energy flow is going to be in one direction, away from you.
Yeah.
And reserves the energy, right? So don't let it suck it out of you. I think when you're cognizant of what's going on, you can defend yourself from too much energy being leaked.
Definitely.
Whether that means not engaging as empathetically as you would normally.
Exactly. Limiting the time.
Limiting the time, that's a perfect way to do it. I like that even more because that way you can be yourself. You don't have to be aloof.
Right.
So you limit the time so that the drainage is short-lived,
Yeah,
minimal.
exactly.
Yeah, there are definitely,
There's
think about
ways.
ways to mitigate it in these in-between steps in situations where you don't really have the option,
That's
which
a good
is
point.
pretty common.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. And if it's a person with whom you can speak openly with, even in a professional setting, maybe, switch the subject to something else, make it more neutral, make it more we language, us language, try to, divert that stream, so to speak, and empty it out into the river instead. I don't know, I'm getting all metaphorical here, but yeah, I think there's definitely ways of, if it's like a personal situation, you can avoid it. You can say, okay, well, this is not working for me, or have that open conversation. And if it's a professional setting where you really you don't have much of a choice, you find ways of protecting yourself and your time and your energy. Yeah. And also, if this is something that you resonate with, that resonates with you, right? If you notice on the blog post, I listed a bunch of other characteristics in communication that you can peruse. But if you notice, well, oh goodness, I do, a couple of those, then maybe in the next interaction you have with people, and it could be, with certain people that you just take their energy and they're too kind and polite to say anything to you, or they might not even been cognizant of it. But if they leave the conversation with you feeling drained and really tired and lethargic, then maybe you can, work towards being more of an energy giver in those cases.
Yeah. I think that ties in nicely to what you're saying at the beginning, which is in most cases, this isn't hardwired into your DNA, right? It's more about being a conscious
communicator
and conscientious communicator,
Yeah.
right? So by understanding the characteristics of an energy vampire, what energy vampiric behavior is, you can engage with other people in a way that is net positive, or at the very least reciprocal. Right? So that you can be aware of situations where I mean, when you start to really pay attention, you can figure out sort of who's doing too much of the talking and too much of the needing in a conversation.
For sure.
Or what you can do is, if it's a situation where you really have something to unload and you have a friend who you want to do that with, you prep them ahead of time and say, look, this, without in nicer words, you say, this conversation is going to be about me and my struggles. Are you up for it? Can you be my source of strength for now?
Yeah.
And with the understanding that in the future, the reverse might be the case, right?
For sure.
So the reciprocity doesn't have to necessarily take place within that conversation. In a friendship, it can take place, back and forth over the period of time. And that's what makes a good friendship, is it's not, always tit for tat, quid pro quo.
Right. Or any type of relationship, right?
But the point is that you're being aware of it, right? You're being aware of it so that, if you know that you are more of an energy vampire to the conversation, you thank them afterwards. You say, thanks so much. I know this is a lot about me. I know it's not easy to hear everyone else's problems, and I know you have your own problems. I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to sort of hear me out on this. Let me know when I can do the same for you.
Exactly. I love that. It's great, because that way you're transparent about, they're having supported you in this time, and that you're willing to do the same for them when the time comes, right?
Yeah.
That's so nice. Yeah. So these are things to keep in mind, right? We all have different communication tendencies. No one's a perfect communicator all the time. There's no such thing. You can't be a master communicator 100% of the time for all of your life. But the point is that we're all trying to get better at it, right? And some people might just push your buttons in ways that other people don't, right? And so you might push other people's buttons in the way that other people don't for them. So these are things to just keep in mind, and every day, every week, set a goal for yourself. Think about, what you want to practice that week. If it's about being more, interrupting less, hogging the conversation less, or being more of an active listener with people, then that could be, a good starting point.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, sort of setting up some kind of game plan for how to be more aware of this and implement it. I like that.
Right. And it's all about, having that mindset and the mental fortitude to then what strengthens our social connections. And we can't live without social connection. Yeah. So online, offline, social connections, super important. So
yes, indeed.
We need to keep at it, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So that's a wrap for this live stream. We're going to be hopping on Greg's channel in just a few moments. So Greg, you want to tell them a little bit about Stake Your Wealth?
Stake Your Wealth, yeah, sure. So it's a personal finance and financial independence channel.
That's right.
We also have a podcast. But we do take the live recordings and all the recordings and put them on a podcast as well. So if you're interested in personal finance and building wealth, right, creating a stable financial platform for yourself, that's what that channel is all about. And we do weekly conversations on there. So if you're not a fan of me, but you love MD, she's on there too.
We're both on there. We're both on there. And what's great about the live chat, just like this, you have the opportunity to ask your questions, and Greg has a lot of expertise and information in this area and passion for it, and so he has a lot of nuggets of wisdom to offer all of us with this. So I'm
certainly passionate about it. That much I can guarantee.
And it's fun. It's a lot of fun because they don't teach you this at school, just like they don't teach us social skills and communication in school. So that's why we're here.
Yep. All right. So we'll see you in a few minutes, or we'll see you next week.
That's right.
Either way, have a great weekend.
And happy explearning.
And happy explearning.